Get ready for the Work Better podcast. I'm Tori McQueen, here to share stories on what's working and what's not in business and in life from humans all over the world. I believe everyone's version of success looks different, but in the end, we should all love our life's work, and in doing so, live a life of complete fulfillment. And if you don't love your work, I'm hoping you'll tune in and uncover some inspiration here to work better. Welcome back to the Work Better podcast, and I can't wait to introduce you to this amazing woman. She shares her multifaceted approach to leadership development as an executive coach and corporate facilitator working with Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. She has emphasized the importance of authentic leadership and impact. She discusses her methods, including retreats and one-on-one coaching, and her shift into more personal events to reach a broader audience. She also delves into her corporate background, her leadership style, and how overcoming personal fears and self-judgment played a crucial role in her journey. There are a lot of key takeaways here, including effective communication, mindfulness, and self-leadership. If you guys want to gain some valuable insights into becoming a better leader, both at work and at home, you guys have got to meet Jessica Rivera. Here she is. Welcome, Jessica. So glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Okay. So tell us a little bit about, I don't want to be so broad, but tell us a little bit about what you do so our audience can hear, because I know you're very specialized. So if you could share that would be great.
So I have a couple of different streams of income, right? So I do executive coaching and corporate facilitation where I deal with Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, companies that have $2 to $3 billion or more on the books. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting work because I get to deal with leaders who touch a lot of people. So I always feel like if I can help one leader who touches a lot of people, my impact is greater.
Oh, yes, that's so true. It's so true.
And then on the other side of it, I do host retreats. I have a retreat in May to Costa Rica, which is already sold out. I do coaching programs and I do some one-on-one. I mean, in 2023, I only had capacity for 4 or maybe 5 one-on-one clients. And this year, I'm hoping to open up my calendar a little bit more.
It's so hard when you have your time just gets so limited, and then what's worth your time adjusts as you grow. And I think that's a growing pain, I think, for some of us that get to that point where it's like, oh, I want to take on more, but it's so much better to impact more people, right? Or not better, I should say, but it's the time that it takes, If you can impact 20 in the amount of time it can impact 1, it's hard not to do that. But that's awesome you're doing that.
Yeah, that's why I really kind of shifted in 2023 to in person and more events so that I can help more people. And then if someone needs something more specialized or wants to join my group coaching program or wants to dive deeper, then we'll see kind of where that person or that company fits. Okay. But this year in 2024, I'm really looking to continue to expand that. I do have a big event that I'm doing in March with an organization called the Dream Lab in New York City. I'm also planning to do something in Miami in probably Q2, end of Q2. So just a lot of exciting things going on.
Okay. So speaking of those exciting things, I can hear it in your voice how much you have going on, which is so exciting. But let's break it down. For someone who has never followed you or seen what you do or heard of you, what is it specifically that you do?
Yeah. So I
help with.
Yeah. I help people really step into their leadership, right? And so what does that look like and what does that mean? And I do it in a way to give you a little bit of my background. I think it will help. I come from a corporate background. I've been in corporate probably my entire life, except for one little stint in a small business. But in corporate leadership and working remotely and leading teams remotely since 2007, I really had to develop my own leadership style. And what I mean by that is get people to do things that I needed them and wanted them to do without me being frustrated.
Yeah.
Right? And I was in sales, so a lot of it is strategy, execution, communication. So I have a framework that really helps people walk through, okay, what's my mindset? How do we evolve our mindset? How do we work on effectively communicating? Then put the strategy in and then really get to our peak leadership. And a lot of people like to put the strategy in first, but I can give you the playbook. If your mindset isn't there and the way you communicate isn't there, it's not going to work. So I like to work mindset, mental models first, right? What are we thinking? How are we thinking? And why do we think that way? And then communicate. How can I communicate to you where it lands, where it resonates? And then everybody, the way I communicate to everybody is going to be a little bit different, but really stepping into my most authentic self, really being interested in people, caring about what they do and how they show up and helping them show up in their full self is really kind of my secret sauce and where I really push people to dig deep and show up as their true self.
Oh, yes. And you know what? That's such like even for me personally, the leadership side is a whole new ball game. Like I've been in sales, I just started in corporate sales, now I'm in real estate sales, and now I have a team. And you know, that leadership part, I think, is a huge transition, especially if you're coming from, being an independent, autonomous, like sales person that drives results immediately to then having to lead a team that drives results that you sometimes feel like you don't have any control over, right?
Many times we feel like, and the truth is we don't. We don't
Right?
necessarily have control over
Mm,
anyone except for ourselves, right?
nope.
And so that's why it takes you as the leader, number one, to self-lead. How am I leading myself?
Oh, yeah.
How can I better lead others? And that's where you truly make impact. When you can touch someone, when you get them self-led, oh my God, there's no better feeling. There's no better feeling.
And so do you work mostly with corporate leaders in the
So
corporate or certain
So
industries
I
or
work with corporate leaders and I do executive coaching and facilitation on the corporate side. I would say it's kind of it's probably 50-50 because I do not want to give up working with my entrepreneurs, working with my solopreneurs, doing retreats. There's just something about that side that the beauty of it is I can bring that corporate strategy to that individual contributor. I can bring that corporate strategy
Yes.
to the entrepreneur. So I get to see things really holistically on a bigger scale and then bring it to my small businesses.
Yes, yes. Well, and so you said you're like 50-50, like corporate and then also these smaller entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
Which has really grown in the last few years, I feel like, with social media and things like that. Now these entrepreneurs want to gather, they want to collaborate, they want to learn, they want to grow, and retreats seem to be the fun middle, like,
I will
magic
tell you
maker,
though,
I would say.
I hosted a retreat in October 2023 that was nothing short of magical. Like absolute transformation in a matter of for I think it was 5 days. And it was mind-blowing. When the girls left, I was in tears because I was like, "Oh my God," to see the way they showed up and the way they left and the difference, it literally filled my heart and soul.
Oh, I can only imagine, like, how that would feel. I haven't dove into retreats yet, as far as leading them, but it is on my vision list, and, I think it does make a big difference when people are removed from where they're currently at and go to a central place and, like, focus and collab with other people that are just on a different wavelength. Explain to us, like, I guess diving into the trainings and retreats and things like that. What is it that people are often struggling with when they come to you? Like, how would they know that they need to get some help?
Yeah.
And what can they
The people that
expect out of working, getting the
yeah.
help?
The people I tend to work with are already high achieving people, right? They already have accomplished much. But there is something missing, right? There's still something like, I don't know what it is. I know I need to do something. And sometimes they even know what it is, but they need somebody there to help them formulate the plan. They need somebody there to help them execute. They need somebody there to help them hold themselves accountable. The truth of it is we're creatures of habit, right? So sometimes we'll just retreat back to what we already know, even if we don't like it. So sometimes you need that person. And it's almost like it's like a true coach, right?
Yeah.
Like Phil Jackson and the Lakers. I don't even know a lot
Yeah.
about sports, but I do know that about them.
I'll take it.
It's like he was there to help make them better, to remind them of their greatness, to say, oh no, you can do it, or you can do more. You're not doing enough. Right. So
Yeah.
really having that, the people that come to me already have accomplished a lot. They already are successful in their businesses, or they had success at some point. They just need that reminder, like, you're a badass. You remind you of your dopeness. Like, let's get to it. We all want a soft life, but we still have to work for it. Like that vibe, right? We can have soft days and soft moments, but we also need like that work hard, like that we're digging in, we're executing. So that if a person wants to be coddled, that's not my style. Like, I'm probably not the coach for you. You want me to remind you that you can do this, to remind you you've done it before and you can do it even more now, then I'm your person.
Oh, good. So mostly it's people who have already achieved and they're like, "Hey, like I'm trying to make this shift or how do I get from A to B?" And you just come
Yeah,
in
I'll give you an
and
example. I was out to dinner last night with an entrepreneur, and he already has a multi-million-dollar business. And where he's at is that he just feels like he's traveling so much. He doesn't want to travel as much. He doesn't want to go so many places to his clients. So he wants to come up with something where it could still bring in as much revenue or
yeah.
more revenue, but where he doesn't have to travel as much. And so I'm like, well, when you can't do one to one, you have to do one to many. What could we teach? Right? What are we already doing? A lot of times we're already doing it.
We're already
We are
doing it.
already doing it. We just
Uh-huh.
haven't figured out how to scale it. And that doesn't mean that we're lacking anything. That just means that outside perspective matters,
Mhm.
right? When you think about it, there are Fortune 500 companies that consult. KPMG, Deloitte and Touche. They are huge companies. And what do? They come into companies and they consult. They tell you, they give you the outside perspective because the outside perspective matters.
Yeah.
They help you see your blind spots.
And be able to shift your mind into sometimes a different model that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Yeah, well, if you ever read uh, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People,
Oh, yeah.
Stephen Covey speaks about the win-win, right? And it's not about, many times people think a win-win is if I give up something and you give up something and we meet in the middle, then that's a win-win. Versus,
Mhm.
I have an idea, you have an idea, we come up with a better idea,
So much
that's
better.
the win-win. And so that's, to me, that's what coaching is about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so good. And it's so needed. So let's transition to back into your story of how you got to where you are then, right? You were in corporate, you were in sales, you slightly mentioned that, but how did you transition into this coaching space? And what was your journey as a leader diving in?
Yeah. So I was always into self-development since I can remember. Since I don't think I've ever read a book that like a fiction. I've never read any,
Huh?
I only love people's stories. I love the
Yeah,
underdog
I could
story. I love
totally
how people
relate.
grew.
It's
Yeah,
the same. I'm like, give me the nonfiction, like, give me the memoirs, give me the, autobiographies, like all of it.
correct. That was me. And so, leading people who I inherited when I first became a leader, a team of all men.
When did you first become a leader?
I was in my 30s. I was in my 30s and I inherited a team of all men. Many of them had been in the industry longer than I had, and
Mm.
many of them were older than me at the
Which
time.
industry is it?
I'm sorry?
Which industry?
Financial services. So we were
Okay.
selling auto loans. So we were business to business,
Mhm.
and dealerships were our customer.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And so we all worked remote. So at the time, I was in New York City and my clients were the dealerships.
Mhm.
And I loved it. I loved it.
Mhm.
I would, these were my people. I felt like I was more myself to my consumers or clients than I was when I was in the office or on Teams meetings or things
Right.
like that. And so then I inherit this team of all men. I was typically the only woman of color at the table. No, I was typically the only woman at the table, almost definitely the only woman of color
Yes.
at the
Yep.
table, right? And so I would often get comments like, "You're still New York," because the company was not based in New York. And I would get comments like, "I'm aggressive." And I wouldn't understand what that meant because I'm like, "Isn't that what makes me successful? Isn't that what has me on top of the
Ah.
leaderboard?" So I didn't understand what they were saying.
And if you were a man, it wouldn't be considered aggressive.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And so I was really trying to navigate where I stood in this company, right? What would make me successful? What's going to get me to that next level? And it got to a point where I was still doing all of the things that they asked me to do, but it still felt very like challenging. It still felt very like exhausting. And I never felt like I could be myself. And a lot of that had to do, in fairness of everyone else, had to do with the fact that I was too busy judging myself because I never graduated
Wow.
college. And so all of my counterparts had graduated college. So I felt like a triple negative.
Your own fears.
My own fears, right? And I felt like a triple negative. I was a woman, I was a woman of color, and I was undereducated. So I always felt like I had to do more, do the most. Now, granted, I have been working since I was 14 years old. So there was like hustle mode, probably, and New Yorker, right? And Latina. So all those things. So probably hustle mode kind of built in innately. But through that process, I had the opportunity to become certified in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In addition to that,
Oh,
I
through your
had hired a
company?
coach.
Is that through your company?
They only deal with companies. So it was through my company. Then I had hired my own coach at the time because I was so frustrated. And my boss and I at the time, which it was actually a woman, continued to clash. And I wanted to know, I didn't want to leave a company that I actually loved working for because of one person. So I
Mhm.
hired a coach, I became certified, and I really started looking at, okay, everybody knows that she's a bitch. I'm not special. She isn't changing and they aren't firing her. So I'm the only one that can change. How do I change? And that's when I really started digging deep into how can I be better? And in turn, then my real focus was how can I be better for my team and make sure that we win? I was ignoring her, ignoring, whatever you
I
need to
love
do, I
that.
would do. But I was not trying to focus on her. I was focusing on my team. And my team started getting results very easily. Very easily. I was not frustrated. They felt their job was easier. I felt my job was easier. My counterparts started recognizing up, across, and below the organization. They all started recognizing. And that was kind of my journey. And I'll say throughout that process, I'm sure I did things that my boss did to me because I thought that that was the way to manage and people. And
Right.
the less I decided I didn't want to be a manager. I wanted to be a leader. Many
Yeah.
managers say managing is like babysitting. I didn't want to feel like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. You touched on so many things that I want to dig into too. Hey there, friends. Are you in business and wanting to get more clients over the next 6 weeks? Well, I've got something just for you, the 5831 Method Session and Guide. It's all about simplifying your strategy to attract and close those dream clients. No more guesswork. Think of this as a little one-on-one session with me to figure out the exact strategies to gain those next clients to close. When you jump on board, you'll snag a downloadable guide and step-by-step video session with yours truly, so we can tailor this method to fit your unique business and goals. And imagine this, in just under an hour session, you'll have a custom roadmap ready to roll out over the next 6 weeks. So what are you waiting for? No matter what business you're in, head on over to torymcqueen.com/method. That's torymcqueen.com/method, or find the link in the show notes to get more clients today. You are very self-aware, which I think is part of probably what makes you a great leader. And I think that's part of the journey too, understanding that you are in a situation where you can only control you and what you decide to do, right? And then pivot from there, like where to go. So that's awesome.
Let's double click
Right.
on self-awareness though, because many of us think we are and we're not, and self-included, right? So I'll
Yes.
give you an example. Let me give you an example. So one year, one of my team members was leaving. He gave us 2 weeks, and when he was ready to go, we were having a conversation, and I was like, okay, so you have nothing to lose anymore, right? I had already been doing the work on me. I thought I had a great relationship with my team, but there's always room for improvement. That's what I believe.
Yes.
And I'm like, tell me, what could I have done better? What can I do better? And he's like, well, if I'm being honest, this person that has been on the phone with me for the last 45 minutes, I wish I would have seen more of her. And I'm like, what do you mean?
What does that
He's
mean?
like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like you just seem calmer. You just seem more like
Authentic.
you.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, thank you for that. Because I thought I was, but maybe I needed to go even deeper in really just relaxing, allowing people the space to just be themselves because I'm being myself. And so then that was like a golden gem that he gave me. And then I said, okay, I want to make sure, am I holding back? I would ask myself questions. I would question my beliefs. I would question my actions. How did I want that person to feel? Oh, I want to make them feel calm. I want to make them feel like they can tell me anything. How do I do that? And really being intentional with every single interaction. I was like a magnet for people, not only on my team, but within the organization that wanted to work with me on projects. Give me, I got the biggest bonus that year. I got the highest rating year after year. So those little nuggets, when you're asking for feedback and people feel comfortable to give it to you, oh, that's the best. But
Oh,
you have to be prepared to take it.
yes. And that is a huge one because I think, first of all, asking for feedback is something everybody should do. But then to know that you're actually getting the feedback that they're honest with, because they have to feel good about explaining to you what the feedback is. Otherwise, they're not even going to share it with you.
Wow. The feedback is a whole other episode. I will tell you that. Because when we ask for feedback, and I work with this with my leaders all the time, it's like, oh, what can I do better here? And the person says, oh, nothing. You're good. That's not real feedback. Okay.
Mm-mm.
That's not real feedback.
No.
And even if they give you a little nugget, then they say, oh, you know what? You could have done this better. Ask some more questions. What does that look like? How does that feel? Give me a specific example on what I could have done better. Give me a specific example when I made you feel this way or made you feel that way. Number one,
Yeah.
get that person thinking to really understand how is it that I feel. But number two, you can get some amazing gems and nuggets from those conversations. But how we solicit, when we solicit the feedback matters. And what we do with that feedback matters.
Oh, I can see how this is a whole nother can
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so important in leadership. And I think it is something that, I mean, you don't always just go pick up a book in a store and read about how to get the best feedback, right?
Or you can and do nothing with it, which is what a lot of people do.
Really?
But I'm going to say this, asking for feedback, giving feedback, and all of that, you can bring that, you should bring that home with you. So I'll give you I have adult children. I'll give you another example. I have adult children. And I remember when I started doing the work on myself and I was telling them, oh, I'm reading these books. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to do this better, that better. And mind you, before that, I was the type of person that I'm a Taurus. I'm an earth sign. So I was like, I always thought I was very chill until I wasn't. Until I wasn't, right? And then I would blow up. So that's what my kids were used to. And I remember I asked them one time, why don't you guys tell me what I can do better? Their first reaction was telling me what they could do better. And I said, no, 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 no. I'm asking you, what could I do better as a mom? Like, give me one example, what I could do better. It took them a moment to really, really think about, okay, what feedback can I truly give her? Because number one, that wasn't the dynamic. It was me always telling you what you could do better. So now I'm like, okay, I need to be better. Even if it's just, hey, before you tell us we're going to family's house, can you give us 24-hour warning? Can you I don't know, like something
Yeah.
small like that
Yep.
can mean a lot to someone else. So all of these, that's the other thing that like makes my relationships with my clients special is that I love to relate it back to life because
Yeah.
we're one person. We're just one person. So
Yeah.
let's
We're
take these tools
people.
and tactics. We're just people, exactly. We're
Uh-huh.
humans. And so let's take these tactics that we use at work and let's bring them home. And many times I say, because many people love to do like my work personality and persona and my home
Oh,
personality and
no, I
persona.
can't keep up with that. I gotta keep it all the same.
Opportunities are the same, but I will say this, I think sometimes we need to bring that work person that is, like, careful with their words, we need to bring that person home. And
Yeah.
that home person that's, like, chill vibes and, like, laughing and doesn't take anything too seriously, that person we need to bring to work sometimes.
Yes.
So or that home person that's raw and just says it like it is, sometimes we need to bring that person to work. So I think the more we can understand that we are just one person, and how do I make sure that I'm honoring both sides? To me, number one, that makes you feel better on the inside, and
Oh
then
my
you
gosh.
become a magnet.
That is such a good point, and that's also why, like, part of why I do the podcast too, because it is about, like, how do you work better to have a better life? Like, how do you do it all, right? And how do you not do it all? How do you make it so that you're living the best life you can? And it really comes back to, like you first mentioned, the authenticity piece, right? Because when you're authentically you, you do bring all those things into work. You do bring all those things back home, and it's all intertwined.
It is. It is. Because we're one, like we're saying, we're one person, right? And while we may have been taught back in the day that you separate, right? You don't bring your home to work and you don't bring your work home. It's just not reality. It's just not reality because we do bring work home. And especially now that so many people are remote, but we
Yeah.
do also bring struggles or whatever to work. So how do we make sure we're doing it in a way that helps us not feel frustrated on the inside, to be able to say, okay, well, maybe I could have handled that better. I'll reflect on that later. Let me, because by the way we do one thing is the way we do most. I don't say all because then I leave room for error. But if that's the case, then your bad relationships at home are going to work. Your bad
Oh,
relationships
yeah.
at work are coming home. So why don't we just work on ourselves holistically, but using these leadership tactics and tools are how you can get there on both sides so that you then feel really good about it. People often ask me, you seem so happy. I'm like, because I am.
Because I am. Yeah. Well, speaking of tools and tactics, then, what would you say three, or if you could fit five, of the best tools and tactics that someone listening could use today to work in their leadership role and at home?
Yeah. Number one, number one thing that I see across the board, large organizations, small organizations, entrepreneur, is communication and understanding specifically how to articulate your value. Because when you can articulate your value, you feel really good about yourself. The caveat or the part two to that is being okay with someone not understanding your value. Because
Mhm.
it's not up to them to know your value. It's up to you to know your value. And it is okay if they don't get it. Completely okay. Right.
Yes.
So releasing that. And that can couple with um at that people pleasing side where we need people. Well, I'll go this way. So communication. So part one, understanding your value. Part two, and Stephen Covey teaches us this, seek to understand before being understood. Very difficult.
Ah, that's so good and so simple.
So simple and really hard. Really,
Very,
really hard.
very hard.
We're taught to justify, we're taught to explain, we're taught to, you need to come from
Defend.
my side and understand where I'm coming from. And when we can just let that go, number one, our relationships will be better. Our relationships at work and at home will be better. So I think communication, and those are my top two areas of communication. We'll put it in three buckets, and then I'll give like some examples. So number one would be communication, and those are two really big ones. I would say number two would be kind of on the spirituality, mindful side. I meditate. So I get it for high achieving people. Meditation sounds so hard. I completely understand. That was me. But I think being able to calm your mind, you don't even understand the ripple effect that that has. When you can calm your mind, the innovativeness, the creativeness that comes through when you can calm your mind. Sit down, and stop for a second. I'm a go, go, go kind of girl,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Again, I've been working since I was 14. I like working, all of those things. But
Yep.
when you can stop and calm your mind, and when you get triggered, ask yourself, why is this person triggering me? Why is this thing triggering me? Question your thoughts. Oh, you
Mhm.
become an evolved person pretty quickly if you continue to do that.
Mhm. Know thyself, yeah. And the
Yeah.
quieting yourself down, that is what I've been working on this last 30 days, like, literally, not just meditating, like, sitting there, but truly, like, zip it up in my head, like, be done, because as an
Right.
achiever and go, 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 and I have 5 children, so and
Whew.
all their stuff, and it's like, woo, so that is a great one. I love that.
Yeah. So calming your mind. So that's like the spirituality side. And I would say the last part is the strategy side. And when I say strategy, when you say strategy, people usually think like business strategy, right? Like let's figure this thing out. But it could be strategy on having a difficult conversation. It could be your strategy on how to manage the kids and everybody else's with true intention, right? So really understanding, okay, what do I want my week to look like? What do I want this conversation to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like? And putting a true strategy in place with intentions to make sure that you get those outcomes. Listen, here's the thing. We want these things and then we don't make them measurable, right? So
Right.
even if it is, okay, I'm going into
Or
this
we don't even
conversation.
know what the measurable is. Like, you don't put that
Exactly.
in place. Yeah.
Exactly. So if I can really assess and walk into a difficult conversation with a strategy, so what do I want to do? I want to make sure that this person knows that I care about them. I want to make sure that this person knows that I didn't like the way this thing happened. And I want to make sure this person knows that I want to come to a resolution. How do you do that? How do you measure that? What if the person doesn't come to your side? Does that mean it didn't go well? But if you were able to articulate your value, if you were able to articulate what they did wrong and still show them that you care, maybe it's still a win. Maybe the person needs some time to resonate with what you said. So really strategizing is really an important piece. And I need people to do it a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think people sometimes don't even know that skill
We
to, like,
don't.
see it from that perspective and then put together and then you need to be able to put a strategy in place. That's a whole 'nother skill. And then you gotta implement it. And
Execution is
hold
everything.
yourself accountable to that strategy.
Execution is everything. Yeah.
So that's all of what you help with then?
Yeah, I would go you got me thinking. I would go communication, because everybody has a problem with it, but if I'm gonna go in order, actually, I would go mindfulness first,
Mhm.
calm your mind down, communicate, work on your communication skills, then strategize, and then, of course, self-leadership. That's where that execution comes in. That's where implementation comes in. That's where I'm gonna try it, even if I'm scared. I'm gonna do it knowing it may not work, and if it doesn't, I'm still learning,
Mm,
right? So I would say those are the 4 areas.
and whether you're at home as a parent or a leader in business, people are watching. So you are leading when you're being self-led, right?
Bro, 100%, right? I think also managing people, being a manager of people actually made me a better mother.
Isn't that interesting? I think the same. I think the same. And to go back to kind of I was laughing to myself when you were talking about you're asking your kid their feedback. I had a same scenario. I asked he's 11 now, but when he was 10, like he was upset about chores. And I was like, listen, we do this every day. Why are you upset? Right. And he's like, well, you just don't get it. Blah, blah, doing the whole dramatic thing. And I said, explain it to me then. How, if we know that we need to do chores every day, how is it that it can be better so where you're not getting so upset about what you already know you have to do? He goes, well, mom, depending on the day or whatever's going on, sometimes you tell me one thing and then I'll do that one thing and you keep adding things. You'll add another thing and then add another thing. So I don't know when it's done. And so then I get frustrated and then you get mad at me and I'm like, "Oh,
Good point. Exactly.
oh, so." you're not mad you have to do the chores. You're mad that I am just picking and choosing and there's a lot of variables and all the variables are up to me. And I'd say when you're done, and I
Yeah.
say what chores, and I say, so, okay, so you'd rather have more structure and know, okay, these are the chores that you do. So if I put the chores out for the entire week, will that help? And you know that these are the chores. He goes, yeah, but you can't just add things. And I said, well, you can't leave your clothes on the steps then. That doesn't count as a chore. That is a self, but these conversations, it's funny because just like you said, it's like, oh, I gained a little nugget there of like, oh, he is upset for a reason,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
he's
It's
being a
not just that he
dramatic
doesn't want to do
kid.
it.
Yeah, it's something totally unrelated that I just didn't think of, right? Because we're the mom and we bossing them around, right? But they are like little mini, they're humans. You have to try to lead to do things that you need them to do, much like in business, you
Much
know.
like I'm
Nobody
telling
wants
you,
to be micromanaged, especially if you're leading a leader, they don't want to be micromanaged either.
well, again, that's like a whole nother show because I think what leaders don't understand is that when they micromanage, when they check up on people, you actually make it more difficult for you as a leader. So let me just explain.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, if I ask you to do this task and I continue checking up on you and I need you to come check with me before you go to the next step, well, guess what? I just gave you the okay that if it fails, it's also my fault. Right? So then
Mm,
people want to say, oh, my team doesn't own their responsibilities. You're not allowing them to own their responsibilities. So
mhm.
versus giving you a task and say, okay, let me know if you need help. And when they say, oh, what do you think I should do? This or this, I say, oh, you let me know. What do you think is best? You're smart. I know you got this.
Yeah,
And if you mess up, we'll figure it out.
yeah,
Most things are not that big of a deal, right? Now,
yes.
unless they're talking money, they can place money in the wrong account.
Yeah.
Different. I get it. But most of the time, you can release control. Most leaders do
Mhm.
not know how to release control. And many times they want control over things that don't even matter.
Oh gosh, do you help with that also?
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's a big part of leadership, right? Releasing control. You want to create your bench. I always said, I know I'm good when the person I'm training can step right into my role and have like no gaps. Like it's just easy. And that when I left my role in corporate, that's exactly what happened. He stepped in and it was seamless. That's what good leaders do.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, no, that is awesome. And it's so needed. And I just think leadership is so important for, again, going back to the business side, entrepreneurship side, whether you're in corporate dealing with, you know, tons of people, or you're a new entrepreneur starting to build your team or running a household. Leadership
Yes.
is huge.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. Okay, I know I can sit and chat with you forever because I'm in the trenches of leadership now, like building my teams and growing and with my household. So it's so fun. Leadership is one of my favorite topics. So I could
Right.
totally dive in and nerd out, but let people know, where can they find you, and what if you're their person, like how will they know, like how can they find you, and what should they go to you for?
So I typically hang out on Instagram at Coach Jessica Rivera. That's where I spend a lot of time. But I also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well. So you can find
Okay.
me there. So those are the two main platforms. But you really want to come to me if you have a team that you're building and you want to make sure that you're creating self-led team members. I'm your girl. If you want to make sure like something is off and you're just not resonating with people, you have a hard time asking for what you want, articulating your value, closing deals. Like I said, I've been in sales my whole life almost. So all of that communication, working on your communication, if your team isn't communicating well, I'm also certified in DISC and several other, personality
Oh,
type
I'm a high ID
programs
or
that
DI.
really help you dissect who your team is, who you are, how everybody works. I'm a high I and a high D.
That's
So I
me.
love people, but I love getting things done.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your handle again? Share it for everyone.
Coach at Coach Jessica Rivera.
Okay. And we will definitely be putting that in the show notes. So I love having you on today. I think you shared so many amazing nuggets that people can use today, starting today. And I think if they need help, they should definitely reach out to you. So
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
thank you. Well, my friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Work Better podcast. I hope you've wrapped up your golden nugget and take it with you on your journey to finish out the week. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a review, or reach out to me personally if you have any special requests for guests or questions you'd like me to share on the show. In the meantime, I'll be over here rooting for you. Until next time.